Good evening and welcome to tonight's Undaunted, bringing you the news on church stories. I am Oyin Okpala. Let's begin. Southern Cameroons is witnessing a series of major developments, from armed raids and civilian deaths to renewed concerns over students' mental health and reforms in their examination system. In Nkwen, armed men reportedly abducted 5 people and shot a woman, while in Babessi, 2 civilians were killed during a security operation targeting an ASA checkpoint. Meanwhile, a Bafoussam student commit suicide after examinations results has raised fresh concerns over students' pressure, while the GCE Barr has also started marking the 2026 exams with results expected by mid-August and plans underway for its own printing press after past exam leaks. Now, these are the news, but first let's get the prime headlines. Here are the headlines for tonight. 5 abducted, woman shot as armed men raid Mile 4 Nkwen. 2 civilians reportedly killed in Babessi operation as government forces to get the ASA checkpoint. Also tonight, Bafoussam student dies by suicide after exam results got over mental issues. 2026 GCE marking begins as Barr targets mid-August results, plans to own a printing press after exam leaks. 2 Ghanaians petition ICC to investigate anti-migrant violence in South Africa as crime against humanity. Also tonight, US, Saudi Arabia signed landmark nuclear deal opening path for civilian uranium enrichment program. All right. Now that's Undaunted. Now let's get the news in full briefings. 5 people have been abducted and a woman sustained a gunshot wound following an attack by unknown gunmen in the Manda neighborhood of Mile 4 Nkwen in southern Cameroons. The incident, which occurred on the evening of Tuesday, July 21st, has heightened security concerns in an area that has witnessed a growing number of kidnappings and armed attacks linked to the ongoing Amazonian war. According to local sources, the armed men stormed the popular drinking spots where residents had gathered before intimidating patrons and demanding money. During the raid, the assailants reportedly seized 5 individuals, forced them away to an undisclosed location. A woman was shot in the leg after allegedly resisting attempts by the attackers to abduct her. She was later taken for medical treatment, while the whereabouts of the abducted victims remains unknown. The latest incident adds to a series of reported kidnappings, extortion cases, and acts of intimidation targeting civilians in Nkwen and surrounding communities where armed groups continues to operate despite the ongoing security operations. Residents have expressed growing concerns and fears over the deteriorating security situation, with many calling for stronger measures to protect lives and property. Security forces have yet to announce any arrest or rescue operations in connection with the attack, and authorities have not released any official statement denying those responsible. Investigations are expected to continue as efforts to locate the abducted victims and restore calm in the areas intensify. Barrister Mbeshia, welcome to tonight's Undaunted.
Thank you for having me once more.
All right, Barrister, this seems to be now a regular occurrence. I mean, 5 people abducted and, a woman was involved. And we all know that when it comes to war, women and children seems to be those who are mostly affected, as they are seen as the weaker vessels in the societies and in the countries. But let's get to hear your thoughts.
Well, I think we've said it many times that is the normal. Adoptions, extortions have become part of our lives. And then sometimes we even make a mistake. We say investigations are ongoing. No. We know that investigations are ongoing when the authorities issue a statement. If they don't issue any statement to say this is what happened and we're investigating, it means no investigations are ongoing. And so they have simply abandoned the people to their own fate. Because again, where is the statement from the authorities saying that investigations are ongoing? They are aware of those things, they issue no statement, and they keep quiet. And we assume that investigations are ongoing. Even where they issue statements, yes, we never know when the investigations ever end. They would have been coming out, they are ongoing. At the close of it, say, well, we have closed the file, we have caught people, or the people are completely invisible. That's how governance is. This is not being done anywhere in Amazonia. Therefore, it is abandonment of the people to their own fate. I abandon people to the criminals. One must suspect, and with strong suspicion, that the government has a hand in the abductions. They're not just coincidental, no. There cannot be so many adoptions in Bamenda in a week. And the governor, and the city mayor, and the gendarmes and the police keep quiet and think that there's a governor there. And so, again, we have abandoned our fate. One excuse, Bamenda, Anglophone area, Amazonia is a no-go zone, it's a red zone, let criminals reign. And so again, until we free ourselves, this might always continue. God have ceased to govern us. The only act of governance is for them to sit there and take a salary. For the mayor to go out and threaten people, they will go on a ghost town day. As simple as that. The lives of these people are important. The money that they steal from them is important. Governance is absent. Therefore, there is no government. What can we do? What to free ourselves? To establish what we can afford for ourselves. Over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Barrister. Still on the same light, 2 civilians were killed on Thursday afternoon in Babessi, Nkwen, following an operation by government forces against the raid they said was operated by members of the Amazonian State Army. Several others reportedly escaped with serious injury after the incident. However, critics have disputed the official account, alleging that those killed were civilians who had been kidnapped and were not members of the ASA. Well, security forces said they recovered an automatic rifle, ammunition, and charms during the operation. The incident comes 3 days after 3 suspected fighters were killed by government forces in Wayonama. Security operations continues to operate in southern Cameroon. Well, this is still a developing story, and hopefully we would be able to get all of the details before the end of the week. Barrister Mbeshia, now this report says that they use the word separators, but we know that they are armed men, but 2 of them were killed. But then, moving forward during our investigation, we discovered that they were not just 2 armed men, they were 2 civilians who were kidnapped, and people were trying to give the names of those who were kidnapped. but we're trying to identify both of them to be able to bring the accurate information out here. But then the news going around is that these are armed men. But the people are saying they are not armed men. They are so and so persons who were kidnapped on so and so day. And so this is what we have, just like we are saying that at the end of the day, the civilians are the ones who bear their brunt of the war. Because at the end of the day, two elephants, gigantic ones, are fighting. But let's get your point of view.
Yes, the people by the blunt are the ordinary citizens. But even if this is a war, this is a war. This is a conventional army fighting against armed rebels, call it like that. And I remember in the last segment I said 2 days ago, I mentioned that before all this nonsense started in Cameroon, we had a police college in Montpellier. In addition to that, we had a mobile wing that was armed. They were trained to deal with these type of situations where people are kidnapped and the kidnappers have arms. They could go there and rescue the people without shooting everybody to death. And this is what they are doing. They suspect somebody is an ambassador, he's a separatist, they kill him. Who gave them the license to kill without trial? Who gave them the license to shoot everybody and kill whom they suspect to be a criminal? And so, again, this is terrible of a community. People are abducted, or they are sitting there and calling themselves separatists. Instead of arresting them and bringing them on trial, you shoot and kill them. Suppose you were not separatists, like in this instant case, suppose you made a mistake. How do you repair that loss? How do you repair that loss? Do they distinguish between the police and the army? What is the army doing in the middle of town with AK-47s, fighting a ragtag army, fighting disobedient children, according to them? According to them, there's no war. And so again, these people were killed. Where they were armed or they just had abducted people, they had no reason to die. Not to die in the hands of government, because their death has been caused by government forces. They had every reason to think that when the government forces come, they are coming to rescue them, if there was a government force. But the government forces to see them, they come to eliminate you. So what's the essence of a government that will send people to come and eliminate even innocent people? Anyway, they're so armed as you see them there from that picture. They must have been better armed than the terrorists, the ones they call the terrorists. Why not just subdue them and arrest them and bring them to trial? They wouldn't do it because for them, anything Ambazonian is useless. A better Ambazonian is a dead one. And so they'll kill you whether you're a man or woman, where you find yourself there willingly or you're forced there. And so again, this is absolute nonsense. This absolute absence of law and order. And so Ambazonians cannot take this forever. They've taken almost enough. And so we should fight to liberate ourselves. So we can get to real governance. Even in Ambazonia, if a group of people decide to rebel, we know how to capture the rebels. We know how to bring them to try to have a fair trial. If people are adopted, we know how to rescue the adopted, rather than to go and kill the adopted people plus the adopters. And so again, it's unfortunate. We should never have been where we are. But we are here. And so how do we do it? We get out of it. Even if it costs nothing, we'll fight to get out. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Barrister. Away from the killings and kidnappings, let's get into the education perspective. An 18-year-old student of Bafoussam, Canada Technical High School, has reportedly died by suicide after discovering that she had not passed her preliminary examination, an incident that had sparked renewed concern over the emotional challenges faced by young people during periods of academic pressure. The student, identified as Karel Lados Datuo, was said to have become deeply distressed after checking the results of the BTMHB program and finding out that she had not qualified. Reports indicate that the development and disappointment over the outcome may have contributed to her decision, although the circumstances surrounding her death have not yet been independently confirmed and authorities have not released any form of official statements. But what we know is that the tragedy has drawn attention to the intense pressure many students experience when dealing with academic expectations, family concerns, and uncertainty about the future. Mental health advocates have continued to call for stronger support system in schools and communities, urging families and educators to pay close attention to warning signs of emotional distress among students. The incident comes at a time when communities in Cameroons are already facing significant social and economic challenges linking to years of instability and insecurity. The ongoing war and unrest in southern Cameroons, commonly referred to the Anglophone crisis, have created a very difficult circumstances and environment marked by displacement, fear, interrupted education, and increased psychological strain for many young people and families. Although no direct link has been established between the broader security situation and this young lady's death, but observers note that the wider atmosphere of uncertainty combined with academic pressure and personal struggles and increased emotional burdens on vulnerable students can be a cause. Local reports suggest the incident may be among several incident cases recorded in Bafoussam involving young people affected by distress related to academic outcomes. I mean, the whole challenges of the GCE can be the reason. But then the developments have intensified calls for schools to strengthen counseling services, create safer spaces for students to seek help, and ensure that examination setbacks are addressed with compassion rather than shame. Authorities and community leaders are expected to provide further information as investigations into the circumstances surrounding the students' deaths continues. Oh well, barrister, this is very sad. I don't know. I know that some persons do not get their results at once, you know, the results that helps them to get into the university. It's obvious that probably this lady they didn't get her results and then was not mentally strong to be able to handle some of the challenges, and she decided to take her life. Is a very sad one. But emotions and pain running here and there. Let's get your point of view.
Well, it's a sad story. Nobody wants to lose a child in those circumstances. And the examination stress is always there to many people, not just children. Can this be avoided? I think it could be avoided. Because remember that in the current education system, they have a whole section of economy where they call it education counselors. They are supposed to be deployed in all those schools. What's the role of the education counselor in the school? Are they just there to take salary and walk away? Or it is part of their duty to counsel the students? An exam is something that you can fail or you can pass. And people do fail, others do pass. And so it is the responsibility of the counselors in that school. While the children prepare for exams, to counsel them, not to be so stressed out. You could fail an exam today and pass it tomorrow. Not many people succeed at first attempts. And so it is the responsibility of the counselors. Could each child just want to die? No. It is emotional stress, the believing in impossibility that she could not fail, but however she has failed. And so when you fail an exam, you don't take your life because you failed. You might never pass the exam, but you still be a successful person in the world, in your own life. Successful people don't pass exams all the time. And so again, it is responsibility of the system. And they have tried to set up counselor education departments everywhere. The question is whether these counselor educators do the right job. If they don't do the right job, these are symptoms for them. These are signals that they should then intensify. Counseling in every class, counseling in examination classes is more important because every child can expect the best just as you can expect the worst. And those who expect the best dancing up the streets for passing, the rest who don't pass should not expect the worst by going to die. Because, again, you fail today, you pass tomorrow. And so we don't know exactly what happened there. But what we know is that she took her life for failing an exam. That should never have happened. It should not happen tomorrow. Ever, it should never happen. Fail today, you pass tomorrow. But the responsibility for counseling you out of that stress is on the institutions, the government, and the school. Over to you.
Right, thank you so much. I think I agree with you. There should be some form of, counseling towards their examination classes, because I've been looking at the situation of the Southern Cameroons. The students are battling so many challenges. They are battling war, insecurity at the same time, poverty, darkness, no power in the area. So, what would you have them do when they struggle and then fail? There should be a lot of counselors around hoping to work on their mental health. I agree with you, Barrister. But then still on examination, the 2026 General Certificate of Education GCE marking session has officially commenced across major marking centers in Boyer and Limbe, with thousands of examiners and secretariat staff beginning their assessment of examination scripts from more than 208,761 registered candidates. The exercise, which is expected to last for 2 weeks, marks the final phase of this year's examination process, following a challenging examination period disrupted by a major leak. The marking session was formally launched on Wednesday by the GCE Board Chair, Professor Iwoleke Tambo, who called on examiners to uphold the highest standards of professionalism, integrity, and fairness throughout the exercise. He stressed the importance of preserving the credibility of the GCE examinations and ensuring that every candidate receives an accurate and impartial assessment despite the difficulties experienced during the examination session. This year's written examination, which began on the 2nd of June, were interrupted after confidential examination papers were leaked online, prompting the GCE Board to suspend the remaining papers for 2 weeks. The affected examinations were later rescheduled and conducted between the 22nd of June and the 2nd of July as part of efforts to safeguard the integrity of the assessment process. Addressing stakeholders during the launch ceremony, Professor Tambo revealed that the GCE Board is pursuing plans to establish its own print and press to strengthen the security of examination materials and reduce dependence on external printing companies. The initiative is intended to minimize the risks of future examination leakages, as outsourcing the printing of examination papers has long been identified as a vulnerability in the examination system. The proposed printing facility forms part of broader reforms aimed at enhancing the security, credibility, and efficiency of the GCE examination process. The marking exercise brings together chief examiners, assistant chief examiners, lead examiners, assessors, and the secretariat's personnel from across the country, with results expected to be released by mid-August. Barrister Mbeshia, the GCE is in the news again, but today, while there are two parts to this report, would focus on the second part, which has been a major point of discourse for us during the weekend program. The GCE leakages, the cancellation of exams, and all of that. So let's get to the part two that, like I said, which is the idea of creating a print and press but for the GCE. I'm thinking that that's what they should have even done from the onset, just like we stated in the report that outsourcing this printing would have been reasons why there has been leaks and leakages all this while. So now that they are marking, hoping that by the next examination season, they would have been able to create a printing press for themselves, with all of the drama that has ensued with the GCE board and all of that. Do you think that this development is better than what it used to be? You speaking from experience, what it used to be and what it is recently, and how they are trying to curb the issue of exam leakages. Do you think that this would do a job for them?
Yes and no. Because right now, as we speak, this 2026, the chairman of the board, Professor Leke, has not told us where the leakage came from. Was the leakage caused by the printers? We have no idea. The printing is just the last aspect of it. And so again, it questions what they are all after. Let us even just finish with that one. The GCE board was created in 1993, more than 30 years ago. At the time, there was something in Boy. They had the government printing press there. They could print it. But what happened here, they dismantled the printing press and carried it away. I think they were printing the thing secondly in the press, present printing press. We didn't hear these leakages. But whatever is the case, for 30 years, if they did not contemplate having their own printing machines, then they are selling after the market. It should not come only today. And one doubts if they can set up one to rely on. If 30 years they've not had to wait to be printing their own questions, the security in printing, then something basically is wrong with it. But back to the whole marking exercise. Are they marking the GC? I've said the GC leaked. Nobody told us the cause. The minister who announced it never told us the cause, where it leaked. Mr. Chairman, who is now talking, never told us the reason. And that good reason not to say it. The minister is not responsible for setting exams. The minister is not responsible for printing exams. The minister is not responsible for any stage running the exams. So she could not tell you where the leak came from. Mr. Chairman is not responsible for setting exams. He's not responsible for running the exams. And therefore, he cannot tell you where the leakage or where the fault occurred. The only person who is technically responsible for those services is the registrar. Which registrar? They have refused to appoint one for 3 years. The last registrar died in September 2023. And this is 2026. They have had no registrar. It is not me saying it. When the thing leaked, we're expecting something to come from the GCA board. Something came from the registrar, from the GCA chairman, the board chairman. I wrote there on that paper, communique of 17 June 2026, registrar vacant. If there's no registrar, who are you to give that explanation? Mr. Tambo, you're not competent, sir. You're not competent to do that. You're a professor, yes, but it is not within your competence to do that job. It's not within your competence. It's the competence of the registrar, and there's no registrar. I'm not the one inventing it. The decree number 2019 of 100 of 4th March 2019 states in Article 28 new, the examination executive committee is created there. Those are the ones who are supposed to deal with it. And the chairman of the executive committee of the examination is the registrar of the board, not the chairman of the board. And so, Mr. Registrar, Mr. Chairman, you are selling after the market. Tell us the truth. You are not competent to do that because none of those exercises takes place under you. You have no idea. Unless you are transforming yourself into chairman of the board and registrar. You are supposed to preside over board meetings, maybe once or twice a year. One of those meetings during which they will discuss the idea of funding for a printing press. That's all you can do. You don't come down and sit down and organize how examinations are marked. None of those examiners was appointed by the board chairman. None of the examination officers in the field was ever appointed by you. So you don't control the appointment. You don't control how they do the job. You cannot control how they mark. And again, I ask, the project that the result will come out mid-August. Yes, some of the results will come out. Who will sign those results? Is it the chairman? If you sign it, it's illegal. Is it the minister? If you sign it, it's illegal. It is the registrar, who is a technician, who is supposed to sign those things. If I see any certificate for my child, signed by the chairman of the board, I dismiss it. Signed by the minister, it is 0. It must be signed by the registrar. When there's no registrar, the whole idea of the GCA board is put to question. And so again, how long shall we have our own people be deceived? Coincidentally, the very minister of secondary education is an Amazonian, he's an Anglophone. He studied in London. Coincidentally, the very chairman of the board is an Anglophone. He studied in Canada. He's a professor. So why are you deceiving yourselves? And I heard the minister sometimes said during this process, oh, we love the GCA board. No, madam, you don't love the GCA board. You might love it, but you don't know the technicalities. Oh, Mr. Chairman, Professor, you don't like the GCE board. You might like it, you don't like it the way you think. Simply because I'm sorry to say this, your own kids will not go through that process. It is a shame. If one the GCE board, let it be established. This marking will come out with some results I've said, which results are not credible until they are certified by the registrar, not certified by the minister, not certified by the chairman of the board. No matter their standing, no matter the academic profiles, you cannot satisfy what you're not responsible for. And so I'm sorry to say that. It's unfortunate. At least you need the press. The chairman, you're right there. Go to your financiers, get money and set up a printing press. But even when that printing press is set, only the registrar will vet the questions that are going to be printed there, not you, not the minister. And so a GCA board is dead. The one who died in 2023 was appointed by the minister without due consultation, in defiance of all the text. And once the person died, they've kept the place open for you people to step in and do what you want, which is exactly what you're doing now. I would die without accepting such charade. You are destroying the GCE board, you are destroying our own children and the generations to come. Over to you.
All right, thank you so much. Of course, this is another topic that would interest people, and let's see how we get details of this for the weekend discussion. But until then, Barrister, thank you so much for being part of tonight's Undaunted.
Thank you for having me.
All right, thank you so much. When we return from the break, we'll head into the African scene where two Ghanaians petitioned the ICC to investigate anti-migrant violence in South Africa as crimes against humanity. Two Ghanaian nationals have petitioned the International Criminal Court to open a preliminary investigation into months of anti-illegal migrant violence in South Africa, arguing that the sustained attacks against foreign nationals may constitute crimes against humanity under international law. The petition comes after a prolonged period of protest and unrest in several parts of the country where migrants have increasingly become targets of violence amid growing anti-immigration sentiments. According to the petition, foreign nationals have been subjected to killings, physical assault, intimidation, forced displacement, and the widespread looting and destruction of homes, shops and businesses. Several African migrants have reportedly lost their lives during the violence, while many others have suffered series of injuries or fled affected communities in fear for their safety. The attacks have disrupted livelihood and heightened concerns over the protection of migrant communities living and working in South Africa. The petitioners are asking the Hague-based court to examine whether the pattern, scale, and alleged systematic nature of their attacks meets the threshold for crimes against humanity and warrant an international investigation. They argue that the violence extends beyond isolated incidents, alleging that repeated attacks against foreign nationals have created a climate of fear and insecurity for migrants across parts of the country. The ICC proceeds with a preliminary examination. It would assess whether there is a reasonable basis to open a formal investigation, taking into account the gravity of the alleged crimes and whether national authorities are willing and able to genuinely investigate and prosecute those responsible. The move places renewed international attention on South Africa handling of reoccurring outbreaks of xenophobic violence and the safety of migrants communities within the country. When we return, we'll get into the globe where the U.S., Saudi Arabia signed a landmark nuclear deal opening path for civilian uranium enrichment program. The United States and Saudi Arabia have signed a landmark civil nuclear cooperation agreement, marking a significant step forward in bilateral energy relations and laying the groundwork for the kingdom's civilian nuclear ambitions. The agreement, formerly known as a 123 agreement, was signed on Wednesday alongside a bilateral safeguard agreement, creating the legal and regulatory framework required for deeper nuclear cooperation between the two countries. Under the framework, Saudi Arabia could eventually develop uranium enrichment capacities and capabilities for its civilian nuclear energy program following the completion of a joint U.S.-Saudi study assessing the feasibility, technical requirements, and regulatory safeguard for such a facility. The agreements are expected to facilitate future collaboration in nuclear technology, infrastructure development, fuel cycle management, and non-proliferation measures. The move represents a major milestone in U.S.-Saudi strategic cooperation as Riyadh seeks to diversify its energy mix, expand domestic electricity generation, and reduce reliance on oil through the development of a civilian nuclear sector. While the agreements establish the foundation for future projects, additional technical assessments, regulatory approvals, and implementation arrangements will be required before any uranium enrichment facility can be constructed. Right, and that's it for tonight's Undaunted. But before we go, let's take a look at the stories that made it to tonight's headlines. Well, tonight on Undaunted, we told you 5 abducted women shot as armed men raid Mile 4 Nkwen. Also tonight, 2 civilians reportedly killed in Babessi operation as government forces to get the ASA checkpoint. Also tonight, Bafoussam student dies by suicide after exam records shock amid growing concerns over students' mental health. Also tonight, 2026 GCE marking begins as Barr targets mid-August result, plans own printing press after exam leak. Tonight on the African scene, 2 Ghanaians petition ICC to investigate anti-migrant violence in South Africa as crimes against humanity. While on the global scene, US Saudi Arabia signed a landmark nuclear deal opening path for civilian uranium enrichment program. That's it for tonight's Undaunted. Bringing to the news on top stories. On behalf of Barrister Mbeshia and a team of technicians behind tonight's production is good night and God bless.